numerous awards, such as the Namibian Business Personality of the Year and Most Innovative Entrepreneur, and is regularly rated by local media publications as one of the most influential Namibians. Flon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Let's start at the very beginning. Tell us about your connection with Oranjemund.
So my parents moved to Oranjemund not long after they got married. My father was there before he got married. And then they had my oldest sister, Johanna, the twins, and my brother with them. And then my brother is a year older than me. He thinks it's 10 years, but it's just 1 year. And she went back to the north to give birth to me, and she left me there. Went back to Oranjemund. I think the burdens of dealing with so many kids while you're working as well did not escape her. And I think I joined the family when I was about 3. So I went to kindergarten there, I went to pre-primary there, I went to primary school. As you probably know, the time that I was in Oranjemund, there wasn't a high school. So once you got to standard 5, which I think is now grade 7, you had to go either to Cape Town or to Windhoek for high school, which is what I did. So my connection is I grew up there. It's, my foundation was set there.
Tell us about some of your fondest memories out there with your brothers and your sisters, with family.
So I think the fond memory for me is we lived right opposite the tank park. And that was fantastic fun for me because the tank park was surrounded by these high trees. And my favorite thing to do was to really, and you must imagine, those trees were probably about 1 kilometer in this direction. And my trick was to go into the highest tree and then climb those trees from that whole circumference. Wow. And my mother was watching me through the kitchen window one day, and predictably, just because my mother was watching, as I crossed to the one tree, I fell. So she watched her poor child falling from branch to branch to branch until I hit the floor. And I think my mother was a nurse, or she's retired now. And her greatest fear for me, because I was a terrible tomboy, is that I'm going to one day come unconscious to the hospital and my underwear has holes in it. So my mother wasn't worried that I was going to get hurt. She was just worried, don't come to the hospital with underwear that don't have clean panties.
What a story to tell. Tell us about the people of Oranjemund. I mean, being out there in that space with other Namibians going through the same experiences as yourself.
Yes.
Tell us about what you learned about the people of Oranjemund.
The Oranjemund experience was not the Namibian experience. I think it's important to highlight that. Even during the height of apartheid, we went to integrated schools. We lived in integrated neighborhoods. But Oranjemund was a complex town. It's a town that the experience there, and I think everybody who grew up or worked in Oranjemund in those days will tell you, is that it became difficult to adjust once you left Oranjemund. Firstly, you needed to deal with a much more racialized society. You had to deal with financial issues that you didn't deal with in Oranjemund. When we were kids, the mine delivered milk, bread, and black paper, black plastic bags for your rubbish, and cleaned your garden. Did the maintenance of your house. You had furniture already installed in your house. My parents were not executives, and they were availed a 3-bedroom house with a garden and a garage. So it was really a utopian type place, which was fantastic to grow up in. But there were a lot of adjustment issues for all of us once we left the safety of Oranjemund. And asking about the people, I think people, particularly kids, take the world as it is. So to a white child, having a best friend who's a black child was not rare in Oranjemund. But what was also not rare is the white child and the black child plotting about how they're going to visit each other because the one parent had a shady view about racial relations. So the kids were insulated, but parents came with their trauma. So as kids, we learned how to navigate that. So we weren't naive about the realities of racism and that level. But it was a much more integrated town. The children generally grew up together, got the same level of education, fantastic people, close-knit community. But with all the things that you have with small towns, gossip, drinking, scandal.
Everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody's business. But that was by far the small part. The big part is that it was really a big family.
Yeah. Tell us about Oranjemund's value propositions.
So I think the value proposition has changed. When I grew up in Oranjemund, it was a closed town where you need a permit to enter. The police was really security employed by the mine. And now it's an open town with NAMPOL present, with a public school present, which wasn't present when we were there. But I think the value proposition is a town that can really cater, build, and protect families. It's a fantastic place to raise children. It has all the facilities. So I think the value proposition comes from the perspective of the services sector, because you can provide a full spectrum of services from Oranjemund.
What investment opportunities can be unlocked for Oranjemund, especially now in this transformation and this change that it's going through, after its diamond revenues or reserves have been exploited for more than 80 years? What can grow from there? What can happen?
I think that's a microcosm of a national challenge. How do we diversify our economy away from resources? How does Oranjemund diversify its local economy away from diamonds? And I think and I've seen a lot being said about tourism and expanding the retail base, and I probably agree with all of that thing, but I want to bring in something that I haven't seen. And when I look at Oranjemund, what I think of, and what many people think of, is quality education. So I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't access to early childhood education, quality early childhood education, if it wasn't access to a very strong primary school education. That laid the foundation for everything else that I did. So I went to primary school in Oranjemund. I went to a government school for high school. I went to UNAM for university. And because I had a strong primary foundation, it didn't matter where I went to high school or to university. So I think the essence, to me, is for Oranjemund to use that as their value proposition, as one of the most important forms of diversification of their local economy. How do they do that? When I look at the UNAM Medical School, which I hear nothing but good things about, and which I know there's an increasing interest across the continent, from South Africa, from Central Africa, from West Africa, from the rest of Southern Africa. There's such an interest in students coming to study in Namibia for medicine and for other topics. And I think, as you see, South Africa had captured that academic market because of xenophobia concerns, because of safety concerns. People are looking for alternatives. I strongly believe Namibia is that alternative. I also strongly believe Oranjemund is that alternative. When I think of Oranjemund, I would think of a town like Grahamstown, where Rhodes University is, a town like Stellenbosch, where Stellenbosch University is, and where some fantastic schools are in that Franschhoek area. And how those local economies are centered around these universities. You look at Oxford, which is a town, but is Cambridge. They center their economies around these universities. And I think there is scope for Oranjemund to put in a world-class educational facility, probably at tertiary level, where Namibians can go to, because it has the fantastic base for a university, but where you also actively offer yourself out for international students. It's safe, you provide quality education, it's not difficult to access, there is an airport there. I think there's a viable social life there.
The vibe. Le vibe.
Yes.
Yes, but
and there's services for families. So even if so I would look at the university town. I would look at retirement facilities. Che, where are you going to retire? I'm not going to roll around in the dust when I'm old. I'm not trying to go onto anybody's farm. Where am I going to retire? Where are you going to retire? There's a generation of people who really need to ask themselves, where am I going to step down?
Yeah.
The palliative care that comes with old age care.
Yeah.
So I think there is specific niches which Oranjemund can actively look at. So old age care, a retirement village, a university, and all the services, the specialized medical services, the specialized academic services that come with that. Where there's a university, there's lecturers from all over the world. They come with their families who need schools, so you put up another fantastic private school there. There's a lot that can be done there. It's got fantastic healthcare facilities, which to me is another opportunity around medical tourism, because we speak about tourism, but Oranjemund is far. Oranjemund and Katima Mulilo share one thing, and they are far. So even as we would love more Namibians to visit places like Katima and like Oranjemund, it's an inconvenient trip.
Yeah.
And maybe make it convenient by having some kind of specialized aspect that you can't get anywhere else.
Except for in Oranjemund.
Except in Oranjemund.
OMDis is a Section 21 company formed by Namdeb, which is tasked with the job of ensuring economic diversification by establishing other industries for the town. What are the thoughts of approach? As in what direction should they take this, and perhaps how?
Yeah, I think the beauty of OMDis is it has the examples to look at. I think Komanskop is the most extreme example of what happens when the mining boom shifts.
Yeah.
Arandis, what Arandis used to be and what Arandis is now is not the same. Tsumeb. So I think we have examples of what happens when there's a whole-scale withdrawal of a mining investor, and I think the De Beers Group should be given credit for the responsible manner in which they've managed their exit, where they've given an opportunity for us to think about what a Oranjemund in the 21st century looks like. So I think the kind of things that they should be looking at from the perspective of sustainability, the first important thing is maintenance of infrastructure. There is fantastic educational, social, health, physical infrastructure in the town of Oranjemund, and it must be maintained. If you don't maintain it, you've lost the battle already. So it's maintenance of fantastic infrastructure. The second part, which comes to the sustainability question, is public-private partnerships, not to try to do it alone, and to see for collaborations, whether it's on tourism. I don't think many people know how beautiful the south of this country is. Whether it's the Richtersveld, there's so many beautiful parts in this country. So to integrate the tourism that comes to the south, but to bring it deeper in. Oranjemund does have a very interesting and unique history, and to play on that. So collaboration, public-private partnerships, maintenance of infrastructure, and looking at areas of specialization and not doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
The value proposition of Oranjemund relative to Ludwitz is different, relative to Roshpina, relative to Keetmanshoop, relative to Gibeon, relative to Maltehoor. So I think Oranjemund has to identify what its unique value proposition is and go for it.
Yeah. What is your dream when you think about growing up there and now into the future? What is your dream for Oranjemund? What do you see?
So I don't know how to say this without sounding corny. But lots of people are giving up on the idea of a non-racial, inclusive society. We're all retreating into our ethnicities, our racial groupings, our language groupings, our whatever it is, and we're not working together. And I know it's possible. I've lived it in Oranjemund. So my dream for Oranjemund is that it articulates the values of a non-racial society stronger, so that we all share those values. And let me be clear about this. The time that we were in Oranjemund, it was not an integrated society. It was integrated from the perspective of race, but not ethnicity. I only came to realize that there were, and please forgive me for this, but I didn't know that this country had black people who are not Ovambus. I knew that they were Southerners, Namas, because we would go to Keetmanshoop. But I didn't know Damaras, Ereros, I wasn't sure, and I think I only found out about people from the Zambezi region when I was in matric. That's how insulated we were. So we didn't have this great platform on which to build a integrated society. But because I came from a society where there were different people, it was very easy for me to adopt very strong non-tribal values, non-racial values. And I want to hold on to that. Yeah. Not only hold on to it, but I want to extend it. So that our society reflects core values of unity, of working together, of respecting one another, of non-discrimination, non-racialism, and having frank conversations. Yeah. And I think we aren't doing so great with that. Right now, but I know it's possible. Yeah. I know we can do it. Yeah. So I want Oranjemund to be the base of showing that can be done.
And how it's done.
And how it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing your story and your connection with Oranjemund for us.
Thank you for having me.
And that was the First Lady of the Republic of Namibia, Flon, Her Excellency Mrs. Monica Geingos, sharing her thoughts on the town of Oranjemund and its evolving future. Thank you for watching, and join us again next time. Bye-bye.